Thank you guys for showing up. Today, as I was introduced, I am representing the Valhalla Movement. And the Valhalla Movement is a growing tribe of storytellers that is transforming both online and offline a community center. We're building the world that we know is possible in our hearts today. We are trying to change what it means to be sustainable. We're trying to make it something that is more appealing to people, that engages people, and that isn't just reserved for the hippies and tree huggers in the world. You know, if sustainability is going to change our world, if we're going to adopt more sustainable technologies and sustainable ideas, then it's all going to come to us from the fact that it's going to be attractive to the world. So today, you guys, we're here to learn about passive houses and here to learn about what we're doing with passive houses. But before I start talking about that home, I'd like to talk a little bit about this home. You see, we all live on this home. Every single person you've ever met, every single person you will ever meet, barring aliens landing on the planet, will always come from this home. And this home is home to everything that is sacred in the world. Everything that is sacred to our life, everything that is sacred to our existence, to our health, to all the people that we've ever loved, hated, and cared for are from this home. And it's also the home to nature. It's the home to the ecosystems and to water, the thing that keeps us alive, the thing that we are made of is home and found here. It's also home to the forests, to the ecosystems, to the people who inhabit every corner of the world, as well as all the animals and things that are found there too. The medicines, everything comes from those forests. And this is not news to you, but it's also home to the food, to what nourishes us, what keeps us ticking, what keeps us going and growing. Home to energy and technology and everything that that has brought to our lives, including the microphone that I'm speaking on and the screen that you're looking at. We have an opportunity here where all of these resources are made available to us in the most perfect of ways. And what we really need to realize, though, is that our home, at the same time, is also being polluted. It's also being trashed. It's also being torn apart piece by piece. And this is not news to you, again. We've all heard of this. We've all known this for quite some time. But we don't really realize how bad of an impact it is having on us and every single one of us. Whether somebody throws a piece of garbage in India or whether it's happening right here in Montreal, the consequences of these things are occurring over time. So this is a picture of a whole bunch of trash that you see at the side of the ocean, and the trash that ends up in our landfill. We live in a consumeristic society where everything we buy, everything we acquire just ends up going into the landfill. And that's a problem. That's a problem in many more ways than we can imagine. Even if it's things that are compostable, these things actually create problems in our society today. And I won't dive too far into that, but even if something composes, if it ends up in a landfill, most of the time it releases itself as methane gas, not as a compostable material. We also have the home of GMOs, the home of poisonous foods, of poisonous things that we're inserting into our body, or playing the guinea pig in our planet and in what we're doing in everyday life. It's the home to pollution caused by all the technologies and things that we want to power the tools, to power the computer that we need. And at the same time, there are alternatives out there that we've all heard about and we've kind of seen out here in the plaza and at this conference. But it's also the home of tons of problems in terms of pollution around our planet. And so a couple years ago, I got really enraged and at the same time motivated. And I actually like to call it rage-tivation. I felt a certain rage-tivation when I looked at this graph that I had found online. And it basically explained that if everyone lived like the average American, that we would need about 4.1 planets to survive. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen any other planets around that are very habitable. And 4.1 is pretty scary because a lot of people clearly want to live like what we are living. And over time, this is getting worse and worse. In fact, Canadians are actually higher. It would take about 5 planets to live like the average Canadian, which is scary in and of itself. And so that motivated something within me, that motivated something within Vahala over time. And we started to realize what the real villain was. You see, there's a lot of people who say the villain is the economy, it's money, it's all these crazy things that man has invented but it's also an inherent problem in what we call, or what I like to call, or what is known as the tragedy of the commons. See, the tragedy of the commons explains that what is good for me as an individual, or good for you as an individual, is not necessarily what is good for the collective, for the community, for the common good. You see, I would love to have a big house and a white picket fence possibly, right? And when I grew up, that was kind of what I desired, because that's what I was told to desire to some degree. It was almost manufactured for me. But that desire has a negative consequence on our planet, but it doesn't have to. And that was kind of scary to me. I mean, the fact that what I might have wanted, what you might want, might be detrimental to all of us, and over time it compounds. We don't really realize it, but we're contributing to the problem every single day with everything that we do. Not everything, but many things. And the common theme within that is scarcity, right? See, we're operating on this mindset that we need to have, own, acquire, because for some reason we believe that all of these things are scarce, and then if I don't have it, somebody else is going to want it and somebody else is going to need it, but that's not true. That's not true. There has to be something that allows us to all abundantly have this and not have to pillage our planet to get this. There is a better way, right? And you might have learned about it. You might can hear the buzzwords and things like permaculture and solar panels and sustainability and whatever all those things mean. But there is no doubt about the fact that if we band together and instead reverse the tragedy of the commons, if we actually start acting in a way where what we do will actually benefit the whole, then we can change our society. So at Vahala, we are on a mission to proliferate freedom culture, to empower and encourage all individuals to spread their unique gifts to the world. Now people are like, well, I thought it was about sustainability. Well, it is. What are we trying to sustain, really? We're trying to sustain their freedom. We're trying to sustain the fact that our culture empowers us and empowers the people of our planet so that we can live in harmony with it. And if we can find a way where people can have that freedom without destroying our planet, then we will be empowered. We will want to consume less. We will actually start living more. Our goal is also to make sustainability mainstream. Now, what does mainstream mean? Mainstream means that somebody who doesn't know anything about sustainability, somebody who's never heard of the word permaculture, could also be living a lifestyle and be acting in a way that makes their life and their choices non-detrimental to the planet, aka it wouldn't be a choice that they're making every single day that contributes to the tragedy of the commons. But to make sustainability mainstream, let's be real here, we have to, that's a really big question. How do we make this big thing and this definition of a word, sustainability, when what does it even mean? How do we make that mainstream? How do we make more people care about it, right? And that's a challenge. There's no doubt about the challenge. So the first thing we need to do is define what sustainability means. To me, sustainability means long-term thinking. It means that we're going to think beyond right here and right now, but more so into the future, into maybe 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now. How can my decision today empower me tomorrow, empower my community tomorrow, and empower the planet tomorrow? Long-term thinking is, to me, the definition of sustainability. But for that to really occur, for that to truthfully happen, we need to make it sexy. See, if it's not sexy, if it's not appealing, if it's not something you and me want to do, only that we need to do it, we won't do it. It won't happen. We know some of our decisions are detrimental to the whole, but it's kind of unsexy sometimes to make the right choice. Right? Sometimes it's more unattractive because it might be more expensive. It might be out of our way. It's less convenient. But over time, that convenience, that tragedy of the commons starts compounding itself, and that starts to change. But if we make it sexy, we can make the entire world adopt it. I used to be depressed about the fact that I thought the world was going to shit, and no matter what we were going to do, we were going to hit that brick wall. And that brick wall is still in front of us, and it's still possible that we do hit it. But 10 years ago today, YouTube was just starting. 10 years ago today, the iPhone did not exist. So can you imagine the world right now, the world that we live in, without YouTube or the iPhone? We kind of forgot what that was like. Why? Because YouTube and iPhones were sexy. They appeal to us. They changed culture. They changed and shifted what it meant to be sexy and cool. They shifted what our idea of what we needed, not just what we wanted as well. We needed this, we wanted this, and it was part of our everyday integral life. So making something sexy is actually incredibly important. Now, traditionally, sustainability is not necessarily associated with sexiness all the time. It's not something that we're like, wow, that's, oh my God, that's a beautiful tree you just planted over there. It's so sexy. Or we don't associate hippies, unfortunately, to being sexy. But that's untrue. Why do we have that? How do we shift that culture, and where are we coming up with this idea of sexy? So over time, the Valhalla movement, a tribe of people coming together on a 60-acre piece of land on the south shore of Montreal, right around the corner from here, we started to learn about things that I consider sexy. Permaculture, for example, right? A way of growing food in a more sustainable and easier to maintain fashion, a way that thinks long-term compared to the monocultures of our world. How did we start to do something that became more attractive, that looked visually appealing, but at the same time could feed us and be a part of the solution when it comes to sustainable food grown locally? We also started researching things like Earthships. We stumbled across the documentary Garbage Warrior, and if some of you don't know, Earthships are built out of recycled materials in part. Recycled bottles, recycled cans, recycled a whole lot of different stuff, and they come together to build a beautiful home, a sustainable home in many senses of the word, and something that is pretty sexy. Like I said, Vahala is a 60-acre piece of land. We're right around the corner from here. It's a piece of land that is zoned agricultural and was GMO corn and soya that we've taken over to transform into this center where we are allowing the culture to shift, where we are documenting everything that we do, where we are taking pictures and educating and telling people how these things can actually be very empowering and how they can be sexy and appealing to them. And when we started with absolutely nothing. We had it was pure garbage soil. I mean, you can imagine years after years of GMO corn and soya and pesticides all over the ground. I mean, the soil itself was so unworkable, it didn't even make sense. And we started by planting. We started by digging a pond. We started by thinking about what can we do to make it more sustainable? What can we do to improve it? And the one thing there that I'm trying to point out is that we didn't just talk about it. We don't just run a website with thousands of visitors that come and talk about this kind of stuff. We wanted to do it. You see, there's so many people who love to blab and talk about sustainability and eco-houses and permaculture, but how many people take the time to do it and do it regularly? I'm not talking about planting one tree one time or being a part of it one time. I'm talking about doing this in and out weekly at least, you know, or monthly, or being a part of it or contributing to it in one way, shape, or form, and that's important. So we don't just talk about things, we do them. So when we talked and when we learned about Earthships, we did it. When we learned about permaculture, we did that. When we thought about, oh wait, one of the ways that we can provide electricity for our farm and for our movement and for our sustainability learning centers through solar panels, so we installed them. We bought them, we put our money and time where our mouth was, not just blabbed on. So we learned essentially about passive systems. And passive systems are incredibly empowering. They really combine some of the natural processes of the planet into empowering you and your home, right? So everywhere in the world, it rains. Everywhere in the world, there are needs, right, in your houses for flushing the toilet, for example. There are needs for people who live in these areas who need food. There are needs of people who want shelter. There are needs of people who need power and electricity. So what if you can use the natural processes of the planet to empower you? What if you can use the sun coming and where it, you know, naturally shines to beam into your house and to passively heat it? What if you can insulate better? What if you can catch that rainwater and reuse it in gray water and black water systems? Now I can go at length into what a passive house means, but I won't spend too much time here just yet. However, as we researched Earthships and we thought they were really cool, at the same time they also had a lot of limitations. They're built out of tires, they use a lot of concrete, they are very labor intensive, they are not as affordable as you might think, even though there are lots of recycled materials that are free. they're not stackable or dense. You know, I can build an Earthship 1, 2 stories, 3 stories, but I can't build one that's a skyscraper in Hong Kong, right? So there are limitations that come on the reliance of knowledge of a certain group of people who have studied Earthships and who have made Earthships. A lack of experts. There's, yes, many people who've gone to the academy, people like Michael Reynolds, obviously, who started this, but there's not hundreds of thousands of them around the planet making this kind of stuff happen. There's a bottleneck on buying the plans, and there's a lack of flexibility in the plans. Even though you can assemble the tires in any which way, there are problems. What if your land doesn't face south in the northern hemisphere and you can't get that passive energy? How can you deal with the elements that are, you know, brought to you not only by our own choices, but also by the geography of the planet at times? And let's be real here. My mom didn't like them. So what does it matter that my mom, a traditional Italian woman, 9-to-5er, why does it matter that she didn't like them? Well, beyond the fact that I'm maybe a mama's boy and maybe I care about what my mom thinks and I want to make her proud, beyond that, what it really means is that my mom kind of represents the mainstream, right? Our goal is to make sustainability mainstream, but if my mom can't get behind something like this, if my mom, who grew up in a nice, pretty environment and wants everything prim and proper and clean, if she can't like this, then we're not going to make this mainstream. Earthships will not be something that we will all adopt and care about. So we decided to take a different direction. Despite the fact that we had built an Earthship and it works and it's great, and I have all applause to Michael Reynolds and everything he's done, we decided to partner up with a team of architects that are way smarter than us. See, we know what we're doing when it comes to marketing and online stuff. We also know and have been learning what we're doing when it comes to eco-construction and permaculture. But what we did is turn to the experts. A group of architects known for having a green reputation right here in Montreal, known as LEF, and headed by Sudhir Suri, who was supposed to talk a little bit about the buildings here today, but his son got the chicken pox and he has to kind of stay with him today. So we partnered up with them and we decided to make this mainstream, we had to make these buildings cater to the real local needs of communities. Okay? We can't just build buildings that we think look cool and then not fit what the community in any part of the world might need. We also needed to make sure that the standards for beauty and comfort were being respected, but not only that, that the zoning laws and regulations were being respected, because when we were building our Earthship in La Prairie and in the Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu area on our land, there was tons of restrictions coming down, raining down on us from the city. And we got lucky that we were able to make something like this happen, and it was because of people like Lef and others that really helped us out. And as a community, we banded together. But if we can't build buildings that meet the regular zoning laws and regulations, then again, we're not going to build something that's mainstream. So who do we need to convince, right? If we're talking about mainstream, and I talked about my mom being part of that mainstream, who do we need to convince to make some of this kind of stuff work? And the first is we obviously need to convince this free-spirited people, right? The hippies and the tree huggers. We need those people who actually care about this to actually support this. If we don't, we've completely missed the mark, we've failed, right? If the people like you guys in this room who care about the planet do not think that this is a solution, then there's no chance that the mainstream people are going to think this is a solution, and no chance that this is going to develop. But we also need to convince traditional people, investors, developers, people who make, at the end of the day, the decisions as to what happens in our communities, what is being built and what is not being built. Okay? And if we can convince those people, then we're not going anywhere. But at the same time, if we don't convince the mayor of any town USA or Canada, and if we don't convince moms, who are the decision makers in families, by all the statistics, if we don't convince those two people, we are going nowhere. Yes, some fringe communities and people like you possibly in this room might adopt these solutions, but if we're not convincing the people who really make the decisions in our society to do this on a local level, this is not going to happen. So how do we convince these people? How do we accept a challenge, a really, really big challenge, to build an off-grid home, or off-grid ready, aka it doesn't have to be off-grid, but could be off-grid, buildable in 30 days, have a flexibility of design, aka if you want 4 bedrooms and the other person wants 2, we need to be able to cater to all of those needs. Be affordable and reduce costs, because traditionally people in their minds say green building expensive. uphold the 21st century comforts, I want to be able to walk into my house, pull out my iPhone, turn on the lights and move the shades. I want to be able to plug in my laptop because this is how I make my livelihood. So we can't go back to the cave when we don't have to. But we have to uphold those 21st century standards. We have to be able to scale in size and development. If somebody wants to build 900 of these in New Zealand, we got to do it. If somebody wants to be able to stack them to the sky and build it in Hong Kong or downtown Manhattan, we got to be able to do something like that. We need to meet the aesthetics of the mainstream. My mom needs to walk in and say, oh, this is beautiful. It needs to be Pinterest worthy, if you get what I mean, right? If that's not happening, then we're also not going to truthfully be able to promote the sustainable lifestyle and make that happen. So that's also an important challenge, and buildable anywhere in the world. Now that is a quite unique challenge when you think about that, because everywhere in the world has different zones and climates. But the foundation of what we're going to build has to maintain that. What if you're in an earthquake zone? We have to be able to build a house that withstands earthquakes. What if you're in a zone that is the desert compared to, or the harsh Canadian winters? We have to be able to adapt to all of these different needs and different standards that are around the world. And we got to be able to do such while building something that is cheaper on average per square foot. So if you're building a house right now and you have two choices, by a show of hands, if you could build an off-grid sustainable home that empowers you and it was cheaper than building an average home that you would see at any architectural firm or in any development, would you buy it? Right? But if it was more expensive, you might consider otherwise. So if we can make it cheaper, then it's a no-brainer. But how? How do we do that? It's a huge challenge. So we accepted it. And here's how we did it. Here's how we conceived of this. The first thing we did is we had to research. Tons and tons and tons of hours of researching in every single element. And we talked about zoning laws in different areas. So we had to build a building that was, if we had to build this anywhere in the world, we have to build a building that meets the zoning laws of at least 90, in my opinion, 90% of the planet. We looked up the most strict zoning laws in the country or in the world, and we made sure that our building meets those laws. The other thing is that we had to build a multidisciplinarian team, almost like the Justice League of eco-housing, right? Because this isn't just about architects and builders. This isn't just about hippies and investors. This isn't just about the mayors and moms. This is about everyone. If engineers can't get behind this, then maybe this is not going to work. If the artist doesn't like this, then that's also not going to work. We need to be able to source ideas from all of society and all the different corners of society to build something that meets the needs of society. Now, our goal is not to convince everyone all of the time. But what we need to do is do something that is mainstream enough that many people can get behind it and that the tides start to shift. So we decided to explore different construction methods, right? Construction traditionally generally happens on site, at least here in Quebec. We bring all the pieces to one place, we start building right on site. Some elements come prefab, maybe the roof or whatever, but for the most part we do everything on site. But what if we didn't have to? What if we can build something that was a little bit more modular? Maybe that we can ship and build in one factory so that it can be more efficient. Maybe that can drive down costs, one of our big challenges. What if we wanted to, instead of full modularity, what if we wanted to build it more kind of prefab, just modularity of walls that stick together and ship and assemble like Legos? What if we could enter into a passive house that was built in a way that we didn't have to all build this on site? That would drive down costs. And again, I'll get to this as we go. So what is a passive house? Passive house is a standard that has been around for quite some time. I think the first passive house was built in 1991 in Germany, I believe, or in Austria. I think it was an Austrian who invented it, but it was built in Germany. And a passive house means that it is a house that passively heats and cools itself, that passively allows air to flow in and out and exchange itself, and at the same time uses the natural processes of the planet to be able to heat and cool, that allows for the rain to be able to be caught on the roofs and all of these different things to come into that. Now, there's a better definition of this, but hey, I'm giving you what I got. So passive houses have really traditionally really good insulation. See, in Quebec here, we have laws that allow or that ask for our insulation values to be at a decent standard by maybe their standards, but not by my standards, right? Why wouldn't we build a house that would maintain the heat when we heat it or keep out the heat when we want it to stay cool? What if we can build walls that were thicker? What if we can use windows that are better? And find ways to let air circulate in and out of the house in a way that actually works logically with the processes of what happens naturally. You know, the heat rises in the house. Why can't we take that heat and bring it back down into the house? Why can't we take cold air from outside, mix it with hot air from inside, and even if we have to exchange that heat from inside to outside to ventilate the house, why don't we let that heat combine in a box or in a space and let that temperature normalize? What I'm explaining to you is one of the key elements of a passive house. It's known as an HRV system. It's an air exchange system that allows for way more efficiency by pulling this air from outside and letting it mix with the air inside, so that the instead of it being minus 20 outside and plus 20 inside, okay, and then you're taking air from outside and you want to heat it up by 40 degrees. What if you took the air that was inside that 20, mixed it with the air outside, make it meet in the middle over time at 0, and then take that air and circulate it back into the house and outside? So that's what a basic HRV system does. Now, it's a little bit more complex than that, technical than that, and again, I can answer these kind of questions afterwards, but for the sake of this, it allows for the temperature to normalize within the house itself and within a system that is smart. The other thing that we wanted to do is that if this is going to be scalable, shippable, if this is going to be something that we can build in 30 days, which is kind of unheard of here in Quebec when it comes to our construction industry, we needed to make this really, really, really efficient. If we want to keep our costs down, we also need to make this efficient. And what we started with was a smart piece. So what do I mean by a smart piece? What I mean by a smart piece is the elements that go into making your house technically work, right? We need running water, we need electricity, and we want to diffuse those services throughout the entire house. We want a kitchen, we want bathrooms. But as opposed to putting your bathroom on one end of your house and the kitchen on the other end of the house and running piping between the entire length of the house, what if we kind of glued some of those elements together? What if we kept them closer? What if even on the second floor when we built the bathroom, we built it on top of the first bathroom so that that piping can be reduced and we can save those costs? And that's what we did. That's what we designed, is we designed our first smart piece. And our houses, no matter what size or shape, are generally always, or not generally, are always going to contain this smart piece and always going to start with that smart element. And over time, you can add different elements to it. So if you want to add a living room and just have kind of a loft style house, or you want to add a living room and a bedroom, or maybe you want the bedroom to be upstairs instead of downstairs. Maybe you want a second bedroom for your guest or for your child. Maybe you want an office space and a greenhouse. Maybe you want to add a nice little entrance onto the side of the house on another part. See, as you start doing this, you start adding the different elements that make up a home. Then you can add the cladding, right? The outside, the exterior finish, whether you want bricks or whether you want wood or whether you want hempcrete or whatever it might be, you can start adding these different finishes. You can add a green roof to help heat and cool. You can add, you can berm it like an Earthship if you really want to, or build it into the side of a mountain. You can collect rainwater and install solar panels on the flat roof. You can build a deck outside if you want to have a barbecue or some guests. And you can have a pretty beautiful home just kind of self-design itself just by the different needs and elements that you might want. So this is just a standard, model that we just kind of built. Really just design a home, one home, we designed an entire system. See, in the same way that I started with that smart piece and then added different pieces, we actually designed the pieces separately so that they can work together when you stick them together, just like when you were playing with the Legos when you were growing up. You see, you can imagine that if you took all of these different pieces and you assembled them in the way that you wanted to see them assembled, while keeping in mind the same element that it always starts with that smart piece, then you can build whatever home you feel fits your needs. See, I'm not here to tell you what your home should look like. You're here to tell me what your home should look like, and I'm here to deliver that to you and help you get there. And I'm here to deliver you that sustainable lifestyle. So what we did is we started designing different pieces that are slightly different. And here's just a couple of examples, okay? So you've got, let's say, a washer dryer, a bathroom and kitchen. Then you've got a washer dryer again with an electrical room, a shower bathroom and a wraparound kitchen. Same thing with a tub. And maybe you want your bathroom to be this way, or maybe you want it to be that way, or maybe you want it to be near the outside wall, or maybe you want it to be right in the middle of your house. We designed every possible piece, no matter where you wanted to place it, that would allow you to build this house and design it online. So we've designed different size living rooms, for example, or different size bedrooms, master bedrooms with different, one with a walk-in closet, one without one with a walk-in closet and a bathroom, depending on your needs. And then we designed smaller bedrooms, some with closets, some without. And we assembled these pieces into a potential of variations that are enormous. You see, I could have designed 1 or 2 houses, or I can design all these pieces and let you design them, and open source these plans onto an online platform, and then all of a sudden we're changing the game. We're changing what it means to build a home and how we can do it. Now, not everybody wants these choices, but so to some degree we can make these choices for you, right? We can design a multitude of houses in all different shapes and sizes with different bathrooms, different number of bedrooms, different of everything, and it could be 1 floor, 2 floor, 3 floor, 10 floor, you name it, it works. These are the pieces like the Legos that you would assemble when you were a kid. So we've made thousands and thousands and thousands of variations as opposed to one. So one of the other elements that is pretty costly when you're building a house is building a foundation, right? Everyone knows foundations are pretty expensive. And here in Quebec or anywhere where it's pretty cold, you have to dig frost walls, right? You have to kind of go below the frost line to make sure that the ice and the cold doesn't seep under your floor and make your whole foundation crack. And what if we can challenge that? What if we didn't have to dig? See, why would we want to dig a frost wall in California? And how can we design walls and things and systems of houses that in other parts of the world where they don't want to have something in the ground, let's say in an earthquake zone, that they want to put it on top of the ground instead? We needed to build that here too. If this is buildable anywhere in the world, then we have to be able to reach that challenge. So the first thing we can do is we can insulate our foundation. Instead of digging, why not build up? Why not insulate it in a way that the floor actually stays warm and stays like a masse thermique, like we say, like to say in French, or a thermal mass, like a battery, so that when the sun beams into our house and heats up this insulated foundation, it will actually maintain that heat and release it over time. So if it's sunny in the day and it's cold at night, that heat releases out. What if we also could build walls that were way more efficient? See, when we build walls right now, we generally have stud insulation, stud insulation, stud insulation. And what I'm hearing in my mind is thermal bridge insulation, thermal bridge insulation. What I mean by thermal bridge is that the air is circulating where that stud is. There's nothing really protecting that from making that air leak in and out of your house. And we're building walls in a very poor manner. So what if we can build walls that really assembled and glued themselves together and instead did double studded or double kind of paned walls? One wall outside, stud insulation, and another wall that met and lined up with it, but the studs were off at different centers. So that there was no thermal bridge between inside and outside, and we can take those walls and adjust them to different thicknesses. So in California, a little thinner. In Montreal, a little thicker. We can choose the R value or the insulation value that you want depending on where you live. So here in Quebec, we suggest something beyond, above 50 and plus. 52, 60. Our design that we're going to be building at Vahala is going to be 60. And the way that these kind of walls technically come together is pretty intriguing and challenging. And it's something that the architects at LEF are probably better and suited to do. And then there's obviously the insulated foundation and how that works as well. So what we designed is a beautiful home. This is just a model. This is not what your home has to look like, but it is what it could look like too. See, we chose white walls and wood, but you could have chose brick and wood or just brick. You can pick what these homes look like, and this is something that we would like to see at Vahala. This is the north side of the home. So the north side of the home in our case is a little bit less windowed. Why? Because in Quebec, in the northern hemisphere, the sun tracks in the south in the winter. So we want that sun to penetrate into our house, but not have so many openings on the north side. This is a typical north side, and this is a typical south side, right? This is a three bedroom home with a kitchen, wraparound kitchen, 2 bathrooms, a staircase that goes up to upstairs, a nice mezzanine that you can kind of go out on and grow food on. You can put a greenhouse on if you wanted to. All of these different models, this is just one example of what it could look like. But the reality is that that choice is yours. So this is something similar to what we would like to build. This is just a sample layout. You can kind of see that some of the different elements that we've put in, so the kitchen, the bathroom, the washing machine and dryer, all that kind of stuff, even the second floor bathroom is all shipped in this one piece that would come on a flatbed truck, or that would get assembled directly kind of in a factory, in a prefab factory, and brought to on site. You can have a second bedroom upstairs. You can add a closet if you want, or you can keep it more lofty. You can have 2 bedrooms downstairs, or a bedroom and an office. You can turn it into one big room, a big open space for your kitchen or whatever it might be, or for guests and gatherings, or put your TV or your computer. And we started to build different designs and different layouts that had slightly different variations, okay? And so this is another one, same style home, same kind of smart piece being installed into one another. The second bathroom on the second floor is there, walk-in closet, desk space, bedroom, second bedroom, or whatever it is. All of those elements can be incorporated into these houses, and it's just a matter of picking different pieces. But what we decided to do for now in our launch strategy, which our launch is going to be happening this August, so you guys are getting an exclusive look at this kind of stuff, is that these pieces we've picked 3 models. A tiny home, which is about 450 square feet inside usable space. A small home, which is about 900 square feet. So in many cases, there's many zoning laws that say the minimum size house that you can have in this area is 900 square feet. So we built one that was 901. And then in this case, the one that we would like to build at Valhalla is almost 1,300 square feet usable space, interior with a deck and all sorts of stuff, exterior that make it about closer to 1,700 square feet. But we also designed a little tiny house. These are some early renders, and the real renders and the better quality pictures will be coming to you in August. You've got a different layouts, but all the same different elements involved, right? The smart piece is still here. All of these different pieces combine into something that makes the design flexible, but always have similar looks. So this is the small house. It's the exact same house that we showed earlier. That was the medium house with the second story. The same exact pieces, just no second story. So it's adaptable. It's very flexible in what your needs are, not in what we think your needs are. And so I know what you're all thinking. You're like, well, did they really achieve the fact that they can make this house on par or cheaper than the average construction? And so if I look at the average construction here in Quebec, basically generally about 100% built on site, or even if it's not 100% built on site, you're getting to around $158 a square foot, okay? Now, that depends on a whole bunch of different things and finishes. I mean, whether you want a gold toilet or whether you want a ceramic toilet, that depends on you. We just took the same standards and put them into different areas of the house, and we came out with these numbers. And these numbers were quoted to us by 8 prefab builders, and in our case, and then in the case of general contractors, we just went and spoke to 8 different general contractors in our research, and this is the average price that we came out with. But what we came up with, which is a construction of 50% on site and 50% prefab. Okay, so AKA we take the smart piece or the noyau of the building and bring that onto the site and then assemble the other pieces on our own, okay? Or we take those different Legos and we just assemble them on site. We came up to $157.70. So it's 30 cents cheaper per square foot. Now that's not huge, but it is huge when you consider that this is R60 walls compared to R24 walls. The difference between those 2 walls is enormous. What that means to make your house passive is that this is extremely efficient and actually cheaper than what you would probably build today. Okay, and if you did a 25% on-site and a 75% prefab, which is what we're going to be doing, we came closer to $152 a square foot. Now, obviously, your own site has different challenges. This doesn't include site planning, for example, right? If you need to level the land on your land, or if you need to connect to Hydro-Quebec or all those things, those are the same. Those costs are incurred no matter what house you build. So we just kind of went down to the specifics of the building itself. And so we've actually achieved a price for walls. In this case, we've got R42 walls that are only $43 per square foot compared to R24.5 walls or insulated walls at R24.5 at $39 a square foot. Right, and we did this at different points for different areas on the map. So this, R42, for example, would be great to build maybe in New York State, where it's a little bit warmer. or in Maine, where it's just a little bit warmer as well. So these kind of differences are pretty important. But the last thing I want to kind of tell you is that we're not just going to talk about it. We're going to build it. And we need your help to do something like this. We are going to be launching these plans and these platforms over time. And we're going to release this in a crowdfunding campaign in August that you guys can all support. And you're going to support it because it's actually going to empower you. We're going to teach you everything that we learned in the research. We're going to offer classes on how these things work. We're going to make DVDs and ebooks on how these walls can assemble, how you can take these exact, wall structures and actually ask your architects and engineers to do these kind of things, and you can export them anywhere around the world, as opposed to being stuck only here in Quebec with stamp plans here. And so we're going to actually build it. Vahala is going to build the first sustainability learning center, the first what we call Vahala Villas, as an education site in spring 2016. So that is just a couple of months away, or just about a year away, and we couldn't be more excited about that. So I want to leave you with this one last quote, which is that when I becomes we, even illness becomes wellness. You see that tragedy of the commons that I was talking about? It is scary. It is scary that every single one of your decisions might be hurting me, and every single one of my decisions might be hurting you. But if we stop thinking in I's, if we start thinking in we's, if we start putting the we before the I, because we are part of that, the I's are within the we's. If we do that, then even illness can become wellness. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening to me, and much love and appreciation.